Good day to you. It's GotAUkulele with an instrument review for you, and I'm really pleased to have this brand back on. I've reviewed a number of them. The brand is called Baton Rouge, and this is their V2-SW Sun Soprano. Now, as I say, reviewed a number of Baton Rouges before and a number of them in the Sun series. I've reviewed the concert, the 5-string, the 8-string. They're all pretty much built the same way, so why am I looking at this Soprano? Well, this one differs a little bit. It's a new model from Baton Rouge, and it provides an alternative to buyers in one very important respect, and that is the nut width on this one. They're still doing the standard nut width, but this is a wide nut version of their Soprano. And why is that important? Well, I talk a lot about this subject, and that's because you regularly see these comments online in groups, but sadly also in educational websites and stores, saying if you've got big hands and you struggle to fit them onto a Soprano because they're cramped, buy a tenor or a concert because you'll find more space. And it's kind of true, but it's true for not for the reason that you think. And that's because, generally speaking, when you go up the scales of a ukulele, the nut gets a bit wider and the string spacing gets a bit wider. And that gives you more space across the fingerboard, which is where you get cramped. So people wrongly conflate the reason for there being more space generally on a tenor, not all, but generally, with the fact that the scales got longer. But it's not because the scales got longer, it's because the nut has got wider. And why I find that disappointing is that there are Sopranos out there with wider nuts. Most of the Hawaiian ones have 36mm nuts, the Martins have 36mm nuts, some of the Kawares do, the Ken Tims I reviewed, 36 across, and that's a lot wider than what the Chinese Flood has done with Sopranos, which is to make 34mm across the norm. So people who pick up Sopranos with big hands tend to pick up value Sopranos. They tend to be 34mm across, and they find that their hands are cramped. So they move to a concert or a tenor and go, hooray, I've now got more space. But it's because the nut got bigger. And if they only tried a wider nut Soprano, they'd realise that that's not the reason. You can play a Soprano with big hands, just get a wider nut. Now, the problem is that, generally speaking, those wider nut Sopranos tend to be at the more expensive end of the scale. So you're looking at the things like Ukelele's and the Martins. And I've seen precious few from China at the value end, if any at all, that are wider. Well, Baton Rouge have decided to try and knock that on its head, and they give this as an alternative for those who want the wider nut, and this is a whopping 38mm across at the nut with wider string spacing, giving you more space. And it's a value instrument. It's under £100. So that's a great idea, an absolutely great idea, and maybe this will help to start to end this myth that if you've got big hands you can't play a Soprano, you need a bigger ukulele. No, you need a wider nut Soprano. It is possible. Let's get into this. Other than the nut, which we've talked about at length, this is the same sort of construction as the other Sun series. It's laminate mahogany. It's a couple of pieces on the top. It's a really nice sort of arch, pronounced arch on the back there, and single piece sides. It's all laminate mahogany, as I say, and it's thin laminate mahogany, and it's light, and it's resonant like their concert was. It's nicely grained, it's nicely finished in satin, and like all Baton Rouges I've ever played, the build is absolutely superb, if a little plain. It's got no binding or bling or anything like that, and the only thing it has got is this engraved soundhole rosette of the sun motif. I don't normally like etchings on the top of ukuleles, but that's not overdone, it's not over deep, and it's quite subtle, and it's rather attractive, I think. We've got a tie bar style bridge with a bit of trim detailing there, made of walnut with a plastic straight saddle, and inside the usual Baton Rouge black veneer on the inside. The linings are not notched, and there's no back bracing because of that pronounced curve on the back and it being laminate, which helps keep the weight down. And it's all right. The wood is in the neck is NATO. It's really pretty actually, and it's got a joint here and a very well hidden joint up at the headstock. The profile is still Chinese. It's kind of rounded on the back. I prefer them much flatter, but as I say, that really wide nut at 38mm. We've got a standard 12 nickel silver frets to the body. They're dressed really well. They're not sharp. That fingerboard is walnut and looks fine. No outward facing fret markers. That doesn't bother me at all because we've got side markers. They're the ones I look at. And it's in really good condition too. Past the plastic nut, which is set up really well. Although, actually, I'm looking at it, is it plastic? It might actually be tusk or composite or something like that. Up to the Baton Rouge headstock, which I think is attractive. And it's got this kind of chamfered edge that's kind of red around it. I think that's really, really pretty. Baton Rouge logo. And fairly generic geared tuners and a set of Ukulele strings. And as I say, these are about £79. So £79 for a soprano that's built really well and giving you that extra space. Want to try a soprano but concerned about size? Have a look at these. And it really is comfortable. Like the other Baton Rouges, the sound is laminate, it's a bit boxy, it's not a high-end sound, but it's not a high-end price, is it? But it's got great volume. Whoa, it's really jangly for a soprano. Great volume, great sustain. And I suspect, I've not played the standard nut width soprano in this series, but I suspect it will sound exactly the same because everything's the same except for the nut. And it is really comfortable for someone with big hands like me. But you know, I can almost do a three-finger D. In fact, I can. I can't do that on a narrower ukulele. I have to bar the D. But I can get my fingers next to each other. I mean, that's remarkable. That's 38mm for you. You know, this is what this is all about. This is a great value ukulele. If it was 34mm, I'd still probably rate it quite highly because it's well made, it's well put together, it sounds decent, and it's a killer price. But for me, I think this is the important bit. As I say, people out there who are genuinely shying away from sopranos because they don't think there's enough space, they say they've got big hands, try one of these. This could be your entry to realising that wider nut sopranos do exist. You might like this. You may then trade up to a Canalea, to a Martin, to a Coaloa, and realise that the soprano isn't less comfortable than the other ones. It's all about the nut width and the string spacing. Hats off to Baton Rouge for this. It gets a good score. It's a really sound little instrument with that excellent feature. The Baton Rouge V2-SW in their Sun series, soprano, 79 quid. Thanks to Stones Music, who are the UK distributor for Baton Rouge, for loaning me this one to have a look at. I think he knew I'd like it. I do. And I really think this should demand your attention if you're wanting to dabble in the soprano world, and why shouldn't you? Back next week. Have a very good end to your bank holiday weekend.